Good evening and welcome to this edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. It's Season 3 and this is the first week of our shows coming to the end of our first week. We hope you had a great time with us, and it shows by the amount of views that each of our first two shows have given to us. Which you like the series on the Masters of the Universe, which is concluding today. September 8, 2023's episode 65 is going to look at the remaining characters in the Masters of the Universe. We'll give you the last stages of it and wrap things up with a fantastic look at what's coming up next week on this edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games, which is coming up next in just a few minutes. Be right back. Stay tuned. We'll be there. Welcome everybody to the show tonight. It is Friday, September 8th, 2023. Welcome to this edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Episode 65 is ready to go, and I can tell from the looks of things that you are excited about this third show of the third season, because based on what we've seen so far from the first two shows, they both exceeded over 100 views in the last couple of days. Each one of the shows that was uploaded to YouTube has taken over 100 views on each episode, and we couldn't be much more prouder than you for your support for Jay's Retro Toys and Games. And also, too, over the past 2 weeks, we've gained 7 subscribers, so we're up to total now of 40 subscribers. Thank you very much for joining us here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, at the end of this video, make sure you hit that like button with a thumbs up, and also hit that subscribe button and get that notification button going as well, too. That'll tell you when we're uploading new episodes. We upload as soon as we finish recording. So at the end of this recording, this episode 65 will be up and ready on Friday's edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Wow, we've had a fantastic week. Let's go ahead and finish out the week with a look at the last years of the original toy line, the final action figures, the mini comics, wrapping up the 40th anniversary of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and She-Ra, the Princess of Power, also as well, too. All of our information, of course, comes from the Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, so follow along with us, okay? Now, the final series of action figures and mini-comics in 1986 and 87 would continue on the adventures past the animated series and its sequel in the She-Ra line, introducing new characters not seen in the cartoon series, such as the heroic warriors of Rio Blast, transforming gunslinger, Clamp Champ, master of capture, and Extendar, master of extension. The evil warriors Blast-Attak, Blast Apart robotic warrior, Ninjor, the evil ninja warrior, and Scare Glow, the evil ghost of Skeletor, the Snake Men, King Hiss, dreadful disguised leader of the Snake Men, Sssqueeze, evil long-armed viper, and Snake Face, the most gruesome of the Snake Men, the Hordesmen, Dragstor, Mosquitor, and the spinning top-like Energy Zoids of Rotar and Twistoid. Aside from these new characters, longtime Masters of the Universe staple characters King Randor, the heroic ruler of Eternia, and the Sorceress, the heroic guardian of the Castle Grayskull, were finally represented in action figure form. Other later Masters of the Universe characters that had only appeared in the She-Ra Princess of Power animated series also saw release in the form of the elephant-headed Snout Spout, heroic water-blasting firefighter, the Rock Warriors, Rokkon and Stonedar, the Snake Men, Tung Lashor and Rattlor, and the Horde members of Multibot, evil robot of 1,000 bodies, similar to the prior interchangeable body segment Modulok figure, and the Horde Trooper, the evil collapsing robot, and the only generic troop soldier figures of the toy line. New versions of the lead characters were also produced with Flying Fist He-Man, Terror Claws, Skeletor, and Hordak in 2 new forms, Hurricane Hordak and Buzzsaw Hordak. Now, the evil Horde obtained their first vehicle creatures in the toy line with Manosaur, the evil insectoid steed, and Monstroid, the ultimate battling monster that had an entirely different depiction in the animated series. And while the Horde's Slime Pit playset, a dinosaur skull-headed torture device, proved to be quite popular in 1986, coming complete with canisters of green ooze to pour over the action figures while held in place with a giant claw. Also that same year, the Land and Sky Disc Launcher, Blaster Hawk, and the Road Rocket, Laser Bolt, were produced for He-Man's Heroic Warriors. And while Skeletor gained the Dragonfly attack vehicle known as the Fright Fighter, at a less expensive price point, several accessory packs of smaller vehicle weapons included the Mega Laser, the Jet Sled, and the Stilt Stalkers in 86, and the Scuba Attack, Tower Tools, Cliff Climber, Beam Blaster, and Artillery set, and several small transforming egg-shaped creatures known as Met-Orbs late into the line in 87. Also late in the line in 1987 were 3 original characters from the live-action movie, Blade, Saurod, and Gwildor, the heroic creator of the Cosmic Key. With their entry into the Masters of the Universe mythos explained in the one last original mini-comics, the Cosmic Key. No other movie-related figures were produced, however, in 1988, the final action figures of the original toy line, the laser-power versions of He-Man and Skeletor, did bear some resemblance to their live-action movie counterparts and were released only to European markets. One of the main storylines of the later mini-comics, released with these later waves of action figures, was the introduction of a new major villain faction known as the Snake Men, first appearing in the mini-comic King of the Snake Men. Cobra Khan, Tung Lashor, and Rattlor, who previously appeared in the He-Man and She-Ra cartoon series with Skeletor, and or as members of the Horde, were now under the leadership of the ancient Eternian King Hiss, whose Snake Men army rose from Eternia's past, joining forces with Skeletor to once again rule Eternia. Additional Snake Men were later added to the roster in the form of the long-armed Sssqueeze and the Medusa-like Snake Face in the mini-comic Revenge of the Snake Men. Another major mini-comic storyline of this period included the introduction of the 3-towered Fortress of Eternia in the Ultimate Battleground, which was a massive final playset from Masters of the Universe, one of the biggest of all 1980s toy lines, complete with a motorized monorail circling the towers. Other notable mini-comics included the debut of Hordak's gruesome, mind-altering slime pit in Escape from the Slime Pit, and one of several origin stories from Rokkon and Stonedar in Rock People to the Rescue. Cybernetic Horde experiments resulting in the creation of the Warriors Dragstor and Extendar in the Warrior Machine, and the suggested origin of Skeletor as Keldor in The Search for Keldor, which also included the only mini-comic appearances for He-Man's ally Clamp Champ, and Skeletor's minions Ninjor, Scare, Glow, and Faker. All of this was leading toward what would have been a continuation of the series in the Powers of Grayskull line before being discontinued. These series, 5 and 6 mini-comics, were often edited by Lee Nording with art direction from Ron Cook and included writing by Tim Kiplin, Phil White, and Stephen Grant, with the artwork of Bruce Timm, Jim Mitchell, Chris Carlson, Charles Simpson, and Larry Houston, among others. Now, the proposed exploration of the distant past of Eternia, dubbed Preternia, forms the basis of what was originally to be the next incarnation of the toy line, entitled The Powers of Grayskull. However, the toy line was canceled very early on, with only a few toys released, like the dinosaur-themed creatures Turbodactyl, Bionatops, Tyrannosaurus Rex, and the rare Italian-only release giant figures Titus and Megator. The main story information originates from the final mini-comic, The Powers of Grayskull, The Legend Begins, which was intended as the first of a 3-part series. However, only this issue appeared. The proposed storyline was to focus on ancient Eternia, which was populated by many creatures, including the aforementioned cybernetic dinosaurs and giants. And when the Sorceress and He-Man arrive, followed by Skeletor, they find King Hiss leading an attack on a village in the hope of drawing out the elders, using some of the cybernetic dinosaurs to take their advantage. Hiss serves as an unnamed one and agrees to unite with Skeletor on the basis that he might be an emissary. Seeing Skeletor's interference, the Sorceress allows He-Man to enter the battle, but for reasons that will be made clear to you in the future, he had to be disguised. He finds himself overwhelmed, but then a shadowy figure appears who turns the odds with a powerful wand. The stranger then sends the Snake Men back to their base and all the time travelers home. The Sorceress describes the Intervener as the greatest sorcerer of all, and He-Man is left asking, but who is he? No further story information is given, and it remains unclear how the giants mentioned and released as toys would fit into the story. However, some marketing press releases and prototypes have shed further information on this. The wizard was to be Hero, who was an ancestor of He-Man, raised by his mentor Eldor, and discovering special powers in a cave. Hero would have led the fight against the Snake Men. According to mini-comics writers, it was intended that the central antagonist would be Keldor, a character revealed similarly late in the line to have been He-Man's uncle, and also strongly hinted to have been the former identity of Skeletor. Whether or not Keldor was supposed to be the unnamed one Hiss served is not clear, although in an interview with Stephen Grant, he vaguely recalls that the intention was that the unnamed one would be the greater evil, who, as the Emperor was to Darth Vader, was intended to be the one who caused Keldor to become Skeletor. Hint, hint, if you go farther back in the series, you will actually see on YouTube how Keldor became Skeletor in the later He-Man cartoons. So that gives you the final years of the original toy line. It was a 6-year run. Fantastic stuff. And we didn't touch base on the figures, the action figures. So let's touch base on that really quick and give you all of the complete list here. Let's go back and look. Let's see if I can get a complete list. I thought there was. I thought there was a complete list here. Series overview and main characters. Okay. That does not help me. There's a whole list of them, including the Horde and everything else. Now let's see. When we talked about the beginning of it, the early years, we went through all of that. And then there's a second wave. And let's see here if this is the one article that they're talking about. Okay, now, this is characters. This is what we want. Okay. So, no, that doesn't help me. What the heck? Okay. I was trying to see if they had a whole list of good and bad guys here. And it doesn't seem to be. Okay, here's the list of the... Okay, this is what we want. This is what we want. All right, so we have He-Man via Prince Adam. In the Masters of the Universe, there's also Teela, the Sorceress, or Tila Na, who's the sorceress of Castle Grayskull. Crenshaw the Battle Cat, who is He-Man's friend. Duncan, also known as Man-at-Arms. Perkato, or Many Faces. Tila. King Randor, married to Queen Marlena. Orko, and who was Gwildor later on. Gwildor appeared in the Masters of the Universe movie in 87, so there was no Orko in the movie. You also have She-Ra, Princess Adora. Mara of Primus, the Galactic Guardian. King Grayskull, Sword of Power. Fictional character first introduced in the 2002 animated series, so we don't even touch base with that. Mossman, Roboto, Zodak, which they appeared in the toy line and also in the animated series. And Hero or Grayro, which we talked about towards the end of the line. Now the Evil Warriors: Skeletor, Prince Keldor, Beastman, Evil Lyn, Clawful, Stinkor, King Hiss. Okay, those are the good ones. Now, those were the very list of it, if you wanted to put the Evil Warriors in there. Let's see, we have Buzz-Off, Clamp Champ, Extendar, Fisto, Stridor, these are the good ones. Gwildor, he debuted in the movie where Evelyn tricked him into giving her the Cosmic Key. Okay, got King Randor, Man-at-Arms, Many Faces, Mechanic, Met Orbs, Mossman, Orko, Ram Man, which was a stocky warrior with poor verbal skills. He was also funny too. Roboto, Rio Blast, the Rock People, Stonedar, Rokkon, and Granita. Rotar, Hyperspin, Sorceress of Castle Grayskull. Real name is Tila Na. She was Tila's mother, actually, in that first episode where Tila was trying to, which was the, Tila on her trip to try to find her mother. Wound up, getting her memory erased. Stratos, Snout Spout, Cyclone. You also have Tila, Titus, Zodak, Cosmic Enforcer, and then that was the total. Okay, so that was the later ones are going down of the later series. You have Queen Marlena. These were in the new adventure of He-Man. Now you have other villains associated with Masters of the Universe. Skeletor, Hordak, and King Hiss are not the only threats to Eternia. You have Count Marzo, Evil Seed, Provus, Shakoti, Neptho, Glendor, Plundor, Lodar. Then you have some other ones that these were exclusive villains. Aaron and Una, Arzrog, Chimara, Creeping Horak, Damon, Dragoon, Evil Giants, the Game Master. These look like they've been, they were also some ones later on. Now, Neptho, he was the evil sorcerer and originally appeared in Temple of the Sun. He was released in an action figure form in 2013. So when they came back and did the classic line again in 2013, they brought together the whole bunch of them that came back for that series. Pretty good, right? One thing about He-Man that I have not mentioned to you is there's so much more that we were going to cover. But because of this first week and the week of the anniversary of the first series with the 1983 series, we were focusing on that only because it's 40 years in the making, folks, and I thought this was a great way to start off the first week of our new season, Season 3. And from the statistics of the show, of our YouTube channel, and once I put this episode up, it's going to really bring in the house here. Although somebody disliked She-Ra, and I'm not sure why. What have you got against She-Ra? I have no idea. But you still came out with 103 views. He-Man, of course, 129 views. Fantastic statistics all around. We gained 7 subscribers over the course of 2 weeks. I can't be much more prouder of this channel growing by leaps and bounds, folks. That's the way to do it. Now, what are we covering next week? Well, we're going to be looking at the console wars. That starts next week. And why are we doing that? Because I said that eventually we were going to get down to that point where the console wars were going to be a very interesting thing. So we have a whole week of console wars. We're going to look at the video game industry term. It's called the console war. That's the article we're going to be looking at. The background of the etymology, Sega versus Nintendo. We're going to look at the entering the United States market, the second push in 91. This is going to be basically the crux of the console wars. And this whole thing started, really, when you think about it, the early history. It actually started in the 70s and 80s, but we don't have exact dates, and if I do, we will eventually give you those exact dates so you can take some notes. But it didn't start with Odyssey. It didn't start with Atari. It actually goes back to Magnavox Odyssey was the first. The video game console market started in 72 with the release of the first home console, the Magnavox Odyssey. So when everybody thinks that Atari was the first to get on the bandwagon, mistakenly, unfortunately, you're wrong. It is the Magnavox Odyssey. So if you're ever encountering a question on a Trivia Pursuit, please make sure you answer Magnavox Odyssey. That's where it's going to be. So we'll look at the console war article from the Wikipedia on Monday's edition. Then we'll start the whole trend by going in order of what actually first came out. Look at the history of each one of the console wars. Take it a little bit of time till we get to next Friday. Then we'll go look at some toys the following week. Each week we'll repeat the sequel. We'll go from a week of toys, a week of games, a week of toys, and a week of games. And if there's more of that the toy has stretched out over the course of a week, sure enough. If a game has more than one part to it, sure enough. And with the console games, there's going to be a lot. So this season is going to be jam-packed with some fantastic new looks at some great toys and games. Folks, I'm Jason DiCanio, thanking you again for another edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Remember, be honest, be real, keep it simple, stupid, kiss. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up for your engagement, and continue to support us, even on the David 3000 network that's showing the first episodes of Jay's Retro Toys and Games here on YouTube. From all of us here at the WJDC studios in beautiful Florida, I am Jason DiCanio, wishing you the best and hoping you'll have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Bye for now.